What's up? Charlie Chaplin, People's Chaplain here. Just to clear up and just set up the whole timeline of all the events that led up to the video where God, had granted a friend of mine, Deconverted Man, and his followers or his Lobsterists. Now, just to give you some background, this whole thing started in the beginning. Again, in the beginning, there was darkness. I had no idea about him, his work, his following, his existence. I was only making a video answer, which is something I have done as a medium to convey my answers for questions that I am asked on a platform called Quora. Quora is a user question answer based platform. So essentially, users ask questions and fellow users answer the questions. Now, within the platform, there are many specific spaces. The spaces I focus on are like mental health, behavior, dating, relationships, atheism, Christianity, just to give you an idea. And the reason I pick those spaces is because those are topics that just personally in my life were the fields that I had some of like the most questions that needed to be answered for my life. For me to be happy, I needed to find answers in these topics, just to give you an idea. And then when I found those answers, wow, like my life changed. And so just to pay it forward, I try to provide the wisdom and knowledge that I have from finding the answers to some of the same questions that people are asking. So I hope that mission statement or that motive makes sense. So assuming that does, again, I was just recording an answer to a question, which was, how do I know God exists? Or, God, what was the question? So if you go on my channel, you'll see the video. How do I know God exists? I posted that video. And hello again. Today's question. I received a comment from Deconverted Man. So this is when we learned of each other's existence, essentially, or acknowledged each other's existence. And he asked, why trust the Bible? After watching my answer to how do I know God exists? I'm not going to replay the video, but this was the question that was asked of me. Great question. Why trust the Bible? And my answer to his question, a personal answer, was just focused on like, why is trust important? Because to me, trust and this is something, the great Fred, Mr. Rogers, had stated as his, I don't know if you guys have seen the Mr. Rogers interview by, I don't know, it was like trying to get funding for PBS to continue producing his show. And it's beautiful. I mean, who doesn't love Fred Rogers, right? Like, one of the things that he said was, in his studies of child development, he firmly believes that trust is the first thing any child must learn. Like, yeah. Before God, before anything else, like trust. Yes, the idea of trust, the importance of trust. Like, I totally get that. Like, when he said that, I was like, wow, yes, okay. I would move that into my list of like, okay, if I have kids, what is the first thing I'm going to teach them? A lot of people, I thought God, I thought God, like, I want to teach my kid what God is based on what God is to me. But then when he said trust is the first thing a child must learn in order to become, like just a good adult, essentially. And so he said his program focuses on trust, helping kids learn trust. And so, yeah, when he said that, automatically I moved that above what I had originally had at number 1. Then I'm pretty sure, I am not going to replay that video again. I think in that answer, I then transitioned into the fact that I trust that I am God. Like, 100%. I stated why I feel this, which came back. And there's just been a whole bunch of videos. I hope that you guys kind of, if you are paying attention and are, interested in what happens in this, just get the full story. Watch everything. So I made the comment, yeah, I'm God. When I was at a point in my life where I was asking this one question, not how do I know God exists? It's how do I prove to myself that God exists? Like, there's no doubt. Like, that was the question I needed to answer. And so when I asked myself that question, I then was led down a path to find that answer. And in a nutshell, the answer is the only way that there is any undeniable proof that God exists is if God, like Jesus Christ taught, is love. Jesus said God is love. If you are loving, then you are with God. If you are acting out of love, then you are acting out of God. Ultimately, just those 3 words in 1 John 4:16, where it says God is love. Like, that was mind-blowing. That answered everything. And I don't know. At that point, everything made sense. Everything. Like, absolutely everything. And that's just for me. I'm not the type of person who's like gonna tell you this, My knowledge is self-knowledge. And a lot of people's knowledge, especially on the Bible and God, I guess they would be able to say self-knowledge, but when I say self-knowledge, it's like this is what I know because I am the one who went up against myself to prove, come on, like that, like I'm the one who made this known to myself. Like granted, it may have started from what other people told me they know or what I should know. But ultimately, when I say my knowledge of God is pure self-knowledge, it's everything I found out based on everything that we've all been told. That's self-knowledge. Now, if you can't say the same thing, then you just pretty much have a knowledge of God, which is just an understanding or whatever. Now, wisdom is different. Wisdom is, bringing in perspective when making a sound judgment on anything. That's the difference, based on knowledge. So, yes, I'm not retarded. I'm not going to just immediately come out with some claim like, oh, God is love, therefore, which I completely understand, and I appreciate that Deconverted Man, was the first person who listened. And I only say that because, after the videos, he'd always leave a comment, and the comment then listed questions. I mean, you're quite the happy person, which I am. I replied like, yeah, if I'm God, like I gotta be happy, right? Like, then yes. And this was in regards to the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I love the way that he logically not opposed, but just logically broke down the disconnect that a lot of people who were against the final verdict that the jury announced, calling anybody who believes this a Nazi, and just like I loved that he used facts and wisdom and knowledge to clearly illustrate what was going on. Why all those remarks like he carried a gun across state lines, but like he just rationally, logically said, no, you are not going off facts. Anybody who watched the case, listened to the testimony, listened to the arguments, knows that's not true. What you're listening is just what somebody told you. Clearly, somebody from our point of view and perspective, knowledge and wisdom, hear those people make those arguments and just look at them just like, I know where that's coming from. And I know that you are just probably somebody who just listens to what TV tells you or just doesn't do any kind of research. That's not a bad thing. That's what many people do, but I'm not that person. So ultimately, that's where if I'm hearing that person say that, that would be the judgment or assumption that I make about that person. Which I know is perfectly normal. Humans, and this is just some crazy random statistic, just when we meet somebody or we see somebody we don't know anything about or whatever, we will automatically make at least 3 judgments or assumptions about this person based on what we perceive of them. So you look at me, you're like, oh, he's Asian. He's probably smart, good at math. Like those kind of assumptions. Same thing with like job interviews, just any kind of interaction. You got to know that if you see somebody who doesn't know anything about you and they are looking at you, you got to just know that they are looking at you making some kind of a judgment, an assumption based on what they are perceiving. Accepted? Now, in the comment, Deconverted Man added, religion is a complex topic, of course. Part tradition, part ritual, part social. So, me making a quote, I am God, is quite the, and again, I mentioned this in the video, when I first read this, I didn't have my glasses, I was kind of skimming through it. I thought it said, quote unquote, I am God is quite the, and I thought it said extraordinary claim, which, because that was what I thought the word was, I wasn't stuck on it. I went to the next sentence, which says, Bible says X, period. Is X true? Question mark. You, meaning I, seem to assume it is true. So then you say, I am love. Is that true? Question mark. So again, he wrote, Bible says X. So the X in this case that I brought up is 1 John 4:16 says God is love. So Bible says God is love. Is God is love true? Question mark. I assume it's true. I know it's true. I'm past the assumption. I know it's true. So when I say I am love, yes, is that true? Valid question. You're right. Exactly. Which is why, if you watch the other videos, in the comments, I believe, just I made a jokingly sounding comment where it's just like, yes, okay. Yeah, for me to say, like, and it goes back to if there was one word to describe you, what word would that be that your friends use to describe you? Essentially, that's, okay, is that true? Like, ultimately, how are you going to know that unless you have some character references, unless you get to know me, which I was really looking forward to that chance. But to the powers that be, Deconverted Man chose not to pursue getting to know me, the person, further. I'll just leave it at that. So again, in that comment, I just said, I will get you 10 testimonials of friends, colleagues, anything. Whatever it takes, you tell me what you need to make that a true statement. To know beyond a reasonable doubt that, okay, this guy is love, like he says. You never gave that to me. Then you follow Jesus, if he existed. Was a Jewish person, thus of a darker complexion. Okay? And this is where it's just like a slap in the face to me. It's like the atheist argument is now gone to like, how do we know Jesus even existed? This guy. And I've even heard some atheists tell me, at the time, there were lots of Jesuses. So how do we know there's just this one Jesus? It's like, okay, now your logic is going astray, okay? If you don't believe that Joshua, his real name is Joshua. Jesus was a name that came after. Joshua, son of Joseph and Mary. That's it, okay? So, yeah, there may have been a bunch of Jesuses, but the Jesus that the book is talking about is Joshua. So let's drop that argument. Fair? Stop saying, how do we know he existed? That's how you know. Because his name wasn't Jesus, his name was Joshua. Sorry for the tone here. I'm just very passionate about this. Thus of a darker complexion. And I'm assuming this is just to address that the stereotypical vision of what Jesus looks like, especially in Christianity, is that he's this white, bearded, long, brown hair person. Which, again, anybody who studies history, just human like geographical history, knows that anybody born in that region that this story takes place is not some white guy like the paintings suggest. So yes, if you're bringing that up, I totally agree. Now, if you're bringing that up to argue that I am not Jesus, I mean, I'm a darker complexion than that white guy, so I can argue that. So now, if Deconverted Man understands my argument, would be that, would the following be my argument? So he says, number one, God is love. Yes, that's what I am pulling out of the Bible. Then I make the claim, Charles is love. Yes. And then C, therefore, Charles is God. Yes, basically. And then you say, if so, then that commits the formal fallacy of affirming the consequent. If this is not your argument, then you should write out what your argument is so I can properly analyze it for logical fallacies. To which I replied, I feel you've done the best job of listing the claims of my argument, which is 100% correct. Jesus said, God is love. We know that because it's written in 1 John 4:16. Charles is love, and this is where I wrote, how many references will I need to give you enough proof to believe I am just peace, and I put live, I meant love and happiness. But all my character references I provide will tell you out of those three, the most fitting is definitely love. Meaning, if you ask my friends, they'll probably tell you, oh, Charles is peaceful, he's loving, he's happy. But if you ask them to just pick one, I am definite. They will tell you Charles is definitely love out of all of anything. And then I just wrote, will 10 witnesses suffice? So then I say, once these are all clear, once you get the proof you need to believe Charles is love, because already the proof I provided God is love is irrefutable. If we're just saying, where did this come from? It came from the Bible. So that argument holds. And then, again, I'm not familiar with this consequent or whatever. I had to look it up. And so from my understanding, the logical fallacy is that Charles is love, and therefore Charles is... Again, this is where I need to step back and just ask Deconverted Man, what are we arguing? What are we proving here? Are we proving that I am God based on the fact that God is love and I am love? Or are we focusing on, can we even fully take God is love based on the Bible as the burden of proof needed to say that's what God is? Is that right? So in order to answer this portion that you had requested, this is the clarification I am requesting of you so that we can have this conversation. I don't want you to be scared. That whole other God project is going to come together. I guarantee you. But here we go. So just please clarify that so I can clarify my argument so that we can have you break this down logically. Because honestly, this is what I need. I need somebody who I feel has a logical perspective when making a sound judgment, which I get that from you. I've watched your videos. And And I really appreciate that. I watched the one where you had the conversation. I forgot his name, but I know you better than just, somebody trying to pick a fight with you, if that makes sense. So I'm not trying to pick a fight. I'm trying to answer all the questions that you, and I called it prayer, but you put it in a YouTube video just asking questions to God. But that's what essentially praying is. So again, this is all part of the lesson. This is all part of the process. So I just ask, don't get too scared. I'm just trying to get your attention. That I'm not going to back away from this argument just because you all of a sudden don't want to have it. And if you don't end up wanting to have it by the time I'm done trying to get you to have this, then that's your choice. But I'm going to have this conversation with or without you. I would love to have it with you and with anybody else. But I feel that I could have this conversation with myself and argue it or dissect it in the same perception as atheists or theists or lobsterists or Deconverted Man or whatever. So that's there's a logical fallacy, I guess. I don't know what to call that, but just I'm going to have this with or without you. And yes, again, either you're with me and you'll participate in this conversation, or if you don't, then by definition, you're not with me. Therefore, you're against me, I guess, would be the X-Men term. If you're not with me, then by definition, you're against me. So when you ask, is that what it means? Yes. You're either for love or you're not. So make a choice. Comment. Reach out to me. You have my number. Let's have this chat together.